Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Today I'm going to speak to you about a building which we completed in East London around a year ago. It's called the Stratford Pavilion. Before I start, very brief introduction to Acme as a practice. I'm British, as you can probably tell, but we do have staff from all over the world, and we really enjoy bringing that kind of breadth of experience and perspective to bear on our work, which is both within the UK and globally. And we work at a variety of scales, so all the way from urban through to sort of product design interiors. And today I'll be telling you about what's probably our bread and butter, that is the architecture. So the pavilion, which you can see highlighted there in the centre, it's located at the edge of a commercial master plan which is by our client Lend-Lease, called the International Quarter. And it's really at the threshold between two very different areas. So we have the commercial quarter itself, we have Westfield, big shopping centre to one side, and then across the bridge we have the emerging cultural offer of the East Bank, which includes a new outpost of the V&A amongst other things, and beyond that the recreation of the Olympic Park. You can see the aquatic centre there. So as a site, it's really a place of very heavy pedestrian flows, particularly between the shopping centre and the park. And the real challenge with this job was to try and create a moment of pause in this sort of sea of movement, a place that people could take a rest, and to create both spatially and sort of in terms of identity this new public space, Endeavour Square, and to frame that as a space. And the first move was locating the pavilion to enclose that area, and that means sort of trying to close off as much as we possibly could of this huge bridge, which was the entrance to Olympic Park, more than 40 metres wide. That places the pavilion over a railway tunnel, and in turn that imposed a loading limit, which meant that effectively we could only build in timber. Timber frame was more or less the only structural option, which was great, because as an office we love to build in timber. This is a picture of our office. Obviously, we like the embodied carbon benefits. We love it, the warmth of the material and just the tactile nature. And generally, we find that people in timber buildings enjoy being in them. Our first project was in timber. This is Hunset Mill back in 2010, single-family house in Norfolk in CLT. And shortly before the competition came into the office, we built this stair for ourselves in the office. So it's a series of stacked CLT elements, self-supporting, a kind of walkable topography, we like to think of it as. And really this was about exploring how does a stair become more than just vertical circulation? How do you create moments of a chance encounter, place to sit and pause? How do you start to use the stair as a way of creating an identity for the space? And how do you create a talking point for people coming into the office? And so when we started to design, we thought we could take these principles and extend them to the scale of a building. And you'll see out there vertical timber piazza, and conceptually we thought of this space, this building, as an extension of the public realm. So it became a building that is wrapped with terraces and stairs on all sides. And it's fair to say the client loved the concept. Constructionally speaking, I think it was a bit ambitious. So we did have to go through a period of redesign, but those sort of fundamental principles were embedded in the scheme. And that meant trying to design a building in the round as a starting point. So we tried to avoid having a front face and a back of house. It meant making a grand gesture towards the stair, so turning the slab down to meet the public realm, creating that amphitheatre, providing that activation. It meant external circulation that invites you to climb the building from wherever you approach on three corners, and that circulation leading you to a sort of raised garden on the roof, which then gives you views out to the context and to the square below. It also meant trying to be consciously quite different from what was around us. So we sit in what's generally a kind of glass and steel commercial buildings, and we thought it was important that this building gave you a sort of moment of surprise within the master plan, and gave you this notion of a really strong identity to the space. And at the end of that design development process, this is what the building was looking like, and you'll see it's more or less how it looks today. So it's a two-story building with a roof garden at the top. We have within it a visitor centre for the park, cafes and restaurants. And it's a CLT and glulam structure, so beams and columns and CLT slabs. And one of the great things about working in timber, particularly in the UK, where perhaps it's not quite so common, is that people engage very early on. So we get lots and lots of people walking between the shopping centre and the park, and already it was going to know, what's this strange timber beast in this jungle full of steel and glass? And I think that sense of interest was enhanced by the folding up and down of this roof terrace and the slightly strange geometries you see going on, which was about creating spaces that are sheltered and give you somewhere to sit and plant, on the one hand where they fold up and then where they fold down for the views out to the context. You can see there that folding also helps us on the lower levels to start creating spaces that have some real articulation towards the edges. Timber slabs going in there, obviously timber great because it's fast, it's clean as a construction method. And then on the right you can see the stair wrapping around the back of the building. And I think when the structure was complete and before the fit out, we were happy that you could see that the power of that sort of timber structure was already starting to generate some really interesting spaces before the fit out came into play. On the outside of the building, this was all about celebrating the notion of the building as a timber object. And so we clad all of the stairs and the terraces with timber fins. These are Accoya timber fins, and those wrap all the way up to the roof terrace, so they kind of reinforce this invitation for people to climb the building, to make their way up. And on a practical sense, they hide louvers, they give us somewhere that we can put light fittings, security cameras and so on. And that design process was, on the one hand, very digital, but also quite hands-on. So we had a series of mock-ups, prototypes, worked very collaboratively with Broom, who are Swiss timber specialists, and they had the capability to take that design and produce a kit of parts from unique timber sections that just slot together on site. And this is how the final scheme looks. So you can see we've got the restaurants and the cafes starting to generate that activity through the spilling out onto the square, but also that more casual occupation of the more public elements of the building, so the amphitheatre and the stairs. As you come closer, that invitation to climb increases. And as you come from different sides of the building, you'll see the same. So on the right-hand side, you can just about make out the second stair there. As you climb those stairs, you get a fantastic variety of views, framed views of the context. In the middle there, you can see the east bank going up. And ultimately you arrive at the planted roof terrace. The terrace is a public space throughout the day, so it's fully accessible to the public during the day. In the evening it becomes a rooftop bar, and I think you could say there's a compromise there between the sort of commercial and the public aspects of the project, but ultimately it does mean that we get activity up there throughout the day and at a level that we probably wouldn't if it was purely public. Internally, it's all about celebrating that timber structure. You can see the fit out was sort of fairly minimal, light touch, particularly when it came to the ceiling treatment. And we worked with colour and with detail in the common areas to try and celebrate that vertical circulation, so that had a bit of a sense of fun and surprise that you get on the outside of the building inside as well. Back down at ground level, I think we're happy that the landscaping and the building work together to create a fairly successful square. It is a challenge because it has to be by its nature a slightly leaky space, because we have West Ham in the London Stadium in this direction, which means the square can't really be fully enclosed. And sometimes the building is just background, sits there framing the space. Sometimes it's a place for sort of casual interactions. It's somewhere that office workers will come down and have their lunch, watch people passing by. It's always a hub for people who are visiting the park. We actually have a buggy stall within the information centre. And then at other times it becomes a stage for performances. Before I finish, I'll see I've got 45 seconds. Very briefly, I wanted to just show you a couple of projects that we're hoping we can take these principles and expand them to. So on the left, we've got Elephant Park. This is an office building in London with a very public ground floor lobby and external terraces. In the centre, Metro campus in Düsseldorf, which is master plan very much focused around the public realm. And on the right is Castle Square, which is a scheme we're doing to renovate existing space in Swansea. And hopefully we can come back and talk about one of these in the future. Thank you very much.